Hey, it's Hannah again. So today's video is going to be like a book haul slash books that I've read. So during quarantine, I picked up on reading. Loved reading, but it kind of has slacked off a lot. And I have an iPhone, and on the iPhone it tells you how many like minutes you're spending on your phone. And I realized like being in quarantine, I didn't want to spend all of my time on social media or on my phone. And so I'm like, what can I do? So I'm like, oh, I can read. So my first, I was like, ooh, I'll read all of the classics. And then I wanted to read Little Women, but I didn't have the book, and the library wasn't open, and I didn't want to go buy it necessarily. So I was like, maybe not. So I asked my friend, and she didn't have it either, so I'm like, I'll just wait. So I started with books that I did own, and so the first half of the books I'm going to tell you about is the ones I have owned, and I just kind of started reading on them. The first book I read was For the Right Reasons by Sean Lowe. I am not a huge Bachelor fan, but for some reason, like, his season kind of stuck out to me. And so I bought the book, and then I watched his whole season. I did buy it on iTunes, so I can watch them. And I don't think I read it when I bought it, because my friend, she liked The Bachelor, like, hey, you should read this book. And, like, I'll just read it once she's done with it. And then she never gave it back to me, so I asked for it back when I came home from being at college during the quarantine. And so I read it, and it was very interesting. And then the next series I wanted to read was Little House on the Prairie. And I grew up watching them on IS something. I don't even know the channel, but I grew up watching them. And so I'll start. So I first read Little House in the Big Woods, and then I read Little House on the Prairie, and then I read On the Banks of Plum Creek, and then I read By the Shores of Silver Lake, and then I read The Long Winter. And I couldn't finish the series because I only had those books and Farmer Boy. I did not really I kind of started Farmer Boy, but I really was intrigued with Laura's story, and so it's currently sitting on my shelf. Maybe I'll get around to it, but I have a lot of other books that I want to read. And I know that there are some controversies around the House on the Prairie series, but I just thought it was an interesting read because I grew up loving watching the shows, and so reading the books, it was fun for me. And then I went to go get my driver's license because I just turned 21 and I had to renew it. And so they had this book drop thing where if you take a book, then you bring one back, or once you're done reading it, then you take that book back. So I took a book, and then a couple weeks later, when I was able to again, I took some books back there. But the book I got was Sisters First. It was very interesting. It has nothing to do with really politics. It just talks about kind of their life growing up. It was very interesting, and I'm really into Madam Secretary, and so this was right up the alley of that. And then I read Gosnell. I watched this movie, and I wanted to read the book because I like movies, but I also like reading the books and text evidence, and it was very eye-opening. If you're interested in this kind of book, I would recommend it. It's unbelievable what is written and what all went on during that. So I really like crime shows. I love Criminal Minds, NCIS, JAG. Those are I really like those shows. And I remember watching this on TV when it happened, on the news. It was J.C. Duggar. She was found after spending 18 years in captivity. And so I read both of her books. You should definitely read it. It is I don't know how if it was me, I don't know how I would have survived. Her story is incredible, and you should read it because she's pretty, I don't want to say it's a cool story, but it's just very wow. I could not put it down. I got this book first from Thrift Books, and I had to wait for this book to come in, and then I read her second book, Freedom. I read it in a day and a half. Very intriguing. And then I read The Walls Are Talking by Abby Johnston. There's other people's stories in here, but she wanted to protect their privacy, so she writes it in the first person. I did read her book Unplanned. I think it was around last year at this time, and the first half of the book was like stories kind of from there, and it's very interesting. I would recommend you reading it if you're interested in this topic, because some of the stories are very they're just very eye-opening. Okay, this one is a really good book. This was I Still Believe by Jeremy Camp. I have not yet watched the movie. My goal was to read the book and then watch the movie. And this is so good. I cannot wait to watch the movie. The people who produced the movie also did I Can Only Imagine. And if you haven't seen that movie, I recommend that movie. I need to read the book still. I haven't read the book, but my goal is to read that book. And then this book just came out, A Higher Calling. I read the Reader's Advanced Edition that came out, I think in January is when I got it, and I read it. But it is so good that I am rereading it again. So this is another book that I got. It is Love Without Borders. I wasn't going to get this book originally, but then I watched some of her YouTube videos and was like, okay, I have to get this book. And I'm so glad I did. So she has had 2 biological kids, and they have done 2 domestic adoptions. They've done 2 international adoptions, and they have done embryo adoptions. So she has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. She has 8 kids. 2 of them are biological, and they have 1 domestic, 1 international, another international, 2 embryo adoptions, which were twins, and a recent domestic adoption. And I'm adopted, so this is really close to my heart, and I really, really enjoyed this book, and I highly recommend it. All the books that I have read, currently reading, and then we'll tell you about the books that I'm going to read. So, I wanted to read Becoming by Michelle Obama. I've heard good things about it, and so I'm like, I'll just try it out. The second book is Miracles from Heaven. I watched the movie, and it was very good, so I'm interested to see how the book is compared to the movie. This is the third book I want to read, and the order I'm showing you these books in don't have to do with like what order I'm reading them. I'm kind of just reading it what interests me. And I've heard a lot about this book, and so I'm like, oh, I'll give it a try. This is another book I got, Elizabeth Smart's book. She had like a documentary. It was like a 3-type series thing, and I bought it on iTunes, and so I was very interested in that, and so I watched those. And when I was buying all these books from thrift books, like, oh, I should get this book. So this is another book. She actually spoke at K-State, I believe, last year around this time, and I was kind of sad that I wasn't going to K-State, so I didn't go. But it would be cool, I think, to hear her story. This is another book I got. So thrift books are having a deal where you spent so much money and you get free shipping. And so I was like, this is like I did one order of 10 books, and then I got free shipping, and then like, oh, I want some more books. And so I had to come up with some books that I wanted. And so this was one of them. They're very popular, and I'm just interested in their story. I don't know anything else about them. So when I bought the other books, the J.C. Dugard book and Elizabeth Smart book, this is another book that came up. They were also co-captive, and there was 3 of them, but only 2 of them wrote the book. So I'm very interested to see kind of how like all the stories, what the similarity is and differences are in the books. So this is another book that I got, Pull It Off. She is actually friends with Nicole Gallion, and I am a huge Nicole Gallion fan. I should make a little video about when I met her. So much fun. It was like a lot of fun. Huge fan. So this is one of her best friends from college, and so I thought, hey, I could take into this. And fun fact of the day, her husband's sister-in-law was my first grade student teacher. Her name was Mrs. Grimm. And I have a note from her. I think it's in my school binder downstairs that I have. So as you know, I mentioned earlier how I love Little House on the Prairie. And so I'm like, I have to read this book because I connected Melissa Gilbert with Lauren Goes Wilder because she played Laura. And so I'm excited to read the book. It's kind of big, thick book, but I'm excited to read it. And then Julie Andrews, her book, Home, A Memoir of My Early Years. She has another book coming out soon, and I thought I was going to be able to get both books, but, like, I didn't want to spend too much money, and so it wasn't out, so I'm like, I'll just wait, and maybe once it gets on Thrift Books, I will get the book. And then I got the rest of the House on the Prairie series, which is Little Town on the Prairie, These Happy Golden Years, and The First 4 Years. I'm not sure if that's the order, but I think that's what the order is. Whatever. I think that's the order. And then this is another book I got, Little Women. I really want to watch the new movie that came out, but I told myself I needed to read the book before I watched the movie. And then these are 2 books that I have had for like a year. I just haven't read them. And it is The Secret Life of Bees. Haven't read it. My roommate recommended it to me, so I bought it from like a thrift bookstore or whatever, and then never got around to reading it. And then Girls of Atomic City. I did get through a majority of it. I'm on page 142 out of page 315. I might need to reread it though, because it's been a hot second since I started reading this book. I think I started it last summer and then gave up. And then I have one more book, but it's not coming until August, and that is the one by Thomas Redd's wife, sorry. And I'm super excited to read that book. She has 3 little girls. One is adopted from Uganda, and they have 2 biological. And I thought it was going to come out sooner, but then everything happened, and she pushed back her date for releasing it. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!